I'm bringing my feet up.
Okay, this is so funny. Somebody got tired of their vote Republican and Trump signs being stolen, so they went and bought at some Art Deco place 5 by 5
I am not live.
metal Trump signs. Look, they spelled out Trump in their front yard. They're like, we dare somebody to steal these.
That's funny. Why am I not showing live?
Oh, I know we're live on YouTube.
It shows I've got a viewer.
You are live.
Excellent.
Ah, there we go.
Me.
I think, do you have your sound on?
Share. Do I have my sound on?
Yeah, I hear sound coming from
Oh,
somewhere.
maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was on very little. Here we go. Share. Oh, I got my share buttons back. Share.
For today.
Share.
Don't be
Share.
cocky.
I know, right?
They might take
Share,
them away.
Share. We're going to share into the DFW Teachers Lounge and Texas Against Common Core.
Yeah, get all the teachers groups for this one. I'm ready to hear this one.
Do 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 do. Kaboom. Kaboom.
Oh, and Tracy Klein has a guest for us, and I'll see
I
her
know.
Thursday. So
I saw that.
yeah, so we'll get that hooked up.
Bring it on. Yeah.
And I even did an update on my iPad, and I still don't have the ability to have.
I try to avoid those updates.
Well, but I'm trying to do something so I can get so I can start talking to people on the iPad again. It won't let me. And now I think I just did
Yeah,
something
that
real
blows
jacked
me
up.
away, by the way. No, ding, 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 ding.
That makes me crazy.
Bring on the Dr. Good. Woo!
Good morning, Dr. Good. We love that.
We got to find
Good
something
Morning.
more
I'm
fun.
sharing too. So that's why I'm not looking
sharing
at you
away.
right now.
No worries. Share,
So you
share,
ready to
share.
talk of sort of a federal level of education?
We are. I'm excited.
I had an article catch my attention. You know, DeVos is not. She wouldn't have been my choice only because she doesn't have very much public experience. But she quoted yesterday in an article from the U.S. World News Report that caught my eye because she said school choice is coming, whether we like it or not.
Oh,
there's my
and Dr.
man.
Good, we're going to have to interrupt you for 1
Yeah.
second because I know Charles is going to want to play his
Oh,
fancy intro.
Look at that. That's fancy.
Live from VentureX Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
The crew. Good morning, the crew.
The crew.
You know you got a lot. You didn't comment on my Halloween.
Oh, is that what? Oh, yeah, that's right. Halloween is coming up.
It is. Dr. Good, how was that? Tell me, Doctor. Be honest. Be honest, Dr. Good.
Well, I love it. You know, the legacy of the wolves. That's our mascot.
Oh,
I love it.
bam!
There
I
you
hit our
go.
mascot.
And long distance high five.
Kabam. Okay, there we go. Oh, and Dr. Good, too. High five, Dr.
High
Good.
five, Dr. Good.
There we go. We got the high five from Dr. Good, too. All right. Hey, crazy stuff going on in the education world. Surprise.
Yeah, shocking.
Put the government in it. Surprise.
We're in the state of confusion again.
Again, you know, DeVos is not my favorite choice because I would have loved somebody with public education experience, and her kids didn't have that. But she said something that really caught my eye, and that is that it's her contention that school choice is coming whether Trump is reelected or not, which is interesting because there are a lot of, especially Democrats, who would try to do away with school.
Biden has flat out said, Dr. Good, he has said, Kamala Harris has said, anybody who speaks on their behalf when education comes up, they're like, and we've got to get rid of school choice, you know?
So what you're saying then is that you're wanting to take away the choice of the taxpayer who pays the money into that educational fund. So that's where I think they need to be held accountable to say,
Absolutely.
So take that choice away. What other choices are you going to take from me? And you know, that is the frustrating part here. They're wanting to say that we can use funds for religious schools and for homeschooling and so forth, when in fact, public school doesn't have enough money as it is, right?
Right.
It's tough enough for us to educate the type of children that we're getting now, which are majority poverty, a lot of second language issues,
Yep.
a lot of special ed. One of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of, when you read data comparing the United States education scores to scores around the world, we're the only country in the world that really educates all kids for free.
And that's true. Yeah, with special education and things of that nature, it's like it was here back in the day. They're just swept under the rug.
Well,
Well, that's the thing. Yes, most people don't realize that if you have a very severely non-functioning child, they're usually institutionalized.
Yep.
They are not sent to a public school. They're not picked up at the house with a yellow, little yellow bus and taken to school, and all. They're not. And so, we're unfairly judged by the good work that we do
Yes.
in trying to educate all kids for free.
well, and if I may, let's lay this out the right way. Let me go ahead and give us a preface of what is school choice, right? How is it defined? Well, Ed Choice says that school choice allows public education funds to follow students to the schools or services that best fit their needs, whether that's to a public school, private school, charter school, homeschool, or any other learning environment parents choose for their kids. Is that a fair definition, Dr. Good?
It depends. Because when you put it in that way, then it does make it fair game for example, a homeschooler to say, I want the funds that would have gone to my public ed school, I want that to be given to me so that I can buy materials for my child who I'm homeschooling. And so, again, is that the definition that we want? Because if it is, then public school will be stripped of even more funds. And we are battling to educate the kids we get with the funds that we have. And if we take more away from the public education arena, of which Texas charters are public education schools, in other states they're not, and that's something we have to remember, then we have to decide what definition do we want to keep. And so if we're going to fund public education, if we're going to fund education fully, well, then maybe there is enough for everybody to have some of it. If you're not going to fund education fully, where do you put the funds where it'll make the most difference? Would that be in public education because they're the ones who serve most kids?
Right.
That's a great debate question, isn't it?
It would be, and I would love, that's where, can you be the moderator for the next presidential debate? And if they don't want to do foreign policy, okay, because Biden has said he doesn't want any foreign policy questions, maybe you could just have a whole section on education. I would love to see that. I would pay to see that.
So, Dr. Good, here's the big question, right? big statements coming out of the Department of Education, Secretary DeVos specifically. Regardless of who's in the White House, school choice will reign. Okay, what does that mean? Is that even a possibility? Does that last until, January 23rd? I mean,
here's what she was alluding to, and really, as much as I sometimes, she's alluding to the fact that if we aren't careful, the schools will become the place where propaganda lives, right? And it made me think of China and the Soviet Union. And I say the Soviet Union, some of you don't remember that I was a Russian major in high school and college. And I went to the Soviet Union twice.
Oh, wow.
And I saw the impact of communism before my very eyes. And I saw how kids were brainwashed, and it was through the schools. So I'm really afraid when they talk about socialism and how we should let socialism creep in. Does that include in the schools where we are also becoming part of that machine?
That's a good question. Well, and again, that's something that, the taxpayers have a stake in this, literally, a financial stake in education, something you bring up quite a bit, which makes education very political when you look at it. And that is, either you're educating this next generation so we can have economic security for generations to come, or you're not. And that's where a lot of people have been concerned about, kids sliding back during the pandemic and all of this kind of stuff. But then I look at it from the parent point of view, and I sent my kids to private school before they went to public school. And it's an actually unique public school. It's a project-based learning STEAM school. So I look at it and I think, as a parent, I would be just outraged if I didn't have choice. And I think of some of the kids at your Legacy campus, in Plano in particular, that if they would have been made to go to the school in their neighborhood, these are kids that wouldn't have gone to school with, as basically coming in their freshman year as a junior, and they wouldn't have had the scholarship opportunities. And these are kids who are, some of them already with their associate's degree have medical certifications. So they're making 25, 35 hours, dollars an hour, doing a part-time job during college. That doesn't just happen. That's because those parents said, I want to stop this cycle and I want something different for my kids. So when do the parents get a voice?
Well, that's why I feel so fortunate that I live in Texas and I have that understanding of the charter school niche of being able to offer things to parents that they wouldn't get in a traditional ISD setting. But, again, it all always boils down to about the money.
Yes.
Because if education were funded correctly, we might have enough to be able to give to religious schools and to the homeschool parent, because they are taxpayers also. We need to recognize that.
So, Dr. Good, let's talk money for just a second. If I could keep you on that for just a second. Because my big question's always been, how much does school choice really cost pub ed? How much does it cost those public schools? And I'm even talking about in regards to, I know that we as charter schools are also public schools, but for some reason ISDs don't see it that way.
Yeah.
They don't. And so I'm going to lump you into
that
this.
That is not news to her.
Right. I'm going to lump you into this. So when I look it up, it says that the most that pub ed choice costs ISDs, Texas public schools, about $156 million a year, which is about 1% of the current public education budget. Does that sound right, or am I finding this statistic and it's way off?
It's really hard for me to say yay or nay on that. We get hit with so many different data points when it comes to the money. What I will tell you is that ISDs see us as unhealthy competition instead of healthy competition. It is well known that when a charter moves into an ISD area, the ISD usually improves because they have to. It's the competition that forces that, right? And so that's a good thing. When kids leave an ISD to go to a charter school or any other school setting, they leave behind a little bit of that money that they would have, that they have. Okay, each child is, let's say each child's worth about $10,000 a year, perfect attendance, right? So when that child leaves the ISD and goes, let's pretend, to a charter, then they bring all but, let's say, 15%. 15% of that is left at the ISD because it's part of their tax base. And our charters are not allowed to have a tax base, right? So ISDs actually get to keep money for homeschool, religious, and charter kids that don't go to the ISD. And so they're actually retaining money for kids that they're not serving. But that's one of those dirty secrets they don't want the public to know. And so I know that Urim Solomon. Urim was really good about reminding the Plano board about that when people would complain about charters moving into the area. So again, it's all about the money, right? Every point that we look at, eventually we're ending up talking about the money piece.
Right.
And so, and that is what drives me, right? What drives my show is that we need to make sure that we have advocates for public education. And right now, whether it's ISD or charter, frankly, because of COVID, it impacted our economic base, our state, funding. And so we're going to all be watching our little budgets, right? When the legislative session starts in January, hoping that we're the last ones cut, right? And so making sure that we have an advocacy army, whether right now is whether it's ISD or charter, to make sure our legislators know that basic funding rate needs to stay the same. I mean, we get paid out of the same pot.
Right.
And
And you're building, you said advocacy army, and we've talked about that before. You're building right now with your show a following and an army that can help. Now, obviously, testifying is probably going to be, I would imagine maybe Zoom testifying. It's going to be different, which actually kind of gives, Joe taxpayer and we the people a unique opportunity. Those who have jobs and family and can't leave and go Wednesday at 10 o'clock to Austin and testify in front of the education committee. Well, now there's going to be that opportunity. So I know if people watch your show on Sundays, they can look and listen and learn as to what is it going to look like to be an advocate for education this time around.
Yeah, this, I always leave a little bit, sometimes more minutes, sometimes less minutes, but I always somehow weave in that advocacy piece.
Yep.
This Sunday, we'll have on a dyslexia teacher to talk about what dyslexia looks like in a face-to-face and remote setting. So that should be interesting, but I'll always have a little bit at the end to remind people about how to contact their legislators. It's quite easy. People think it's hard to get a hold of your legislators. Most of them are quite anxious to hear from you. And if we can just get people to realize that, the army will be built faster.
I think you're right. Yep.
So in looking at all of this across the board, it seems to be in this era, and probably in every era. I just wasn't alive in 1879 and I wasn't alive in 1910.
Even I wouldn't, no.
Well, even you were, right? Now, Kathy was.
Yep.
You knew that was
the bee's
coming.
knees.
You knew that was
I was the bee's knees in 1910.
And I go to this with medical science as well. How do we get politics out of this and we do what's best for kids?
That's a really good question. And I would guess that we would have to try to vote in legislators who really are so pub ed friendly that there's no doubt that they're going to vote to help kids. I mean, that's an imperfect science, isn't it?
It
to
is.
vote in enough public ed legislators that we don't have to worry to the extent, public educators, especially at my level, we shouldn't be spending this much time on the politics of public education. We should be spending money on trying to figure out what better instructional processes we can bring to our, toughest to teach kids, right? How to better support teachers. But instead, we are having to spend a lot of time hobnobbing with legislators and making sure that they value public education. And so, gosh, that's
backwards.
Perfect world.
Yeah, I mean, and Dr. Good, that's backwards, and it's interesting because a lot of times on the education committee, you'll end up getting people who don't have any background or don't have school age kids, and they have, they're older, they've retired, whatever the situation is. Maybe they were from the insurance world, and all of a sudden they're, the vice chair of the education committee, and it's almost like you need to have people appointed to to that committee in particular that either have school age kids, have been an educator, have been married to an educator, have some kind of connection, because unfortunately, you can't recreate. You go back and we think, well, when I was in school, well, my goodness, okay, that was forever and a day ago. School's way different now. And it's a shame that a lot of times you do have to spend that valuable time educating somebody who you feel like should be in the know if they're representing us. And education's such a huge part of the budget in the state of Texas and in the country.
So you're reminding me of the fact that most people aren't aware that we're really less political than other countries. Even in Puerto Rico, where I was last week, I interviewed a teacher who lost her job because she voted for the wrong party.
Wow.
There are other countries where to be named a principal of a school, you must be voting and be part of the ruling political party. And so, I mean, we think we're bad politically here. We're not anywhere near as bad as some other countries where you must be part of that the ruling political party to be part of the upper echelon in school.
God, that's frightening. And how do they know who you vote for anyways if you don't have a yard sign out?
Well, you have to be part of the party. You know, you have to be.
So you have to be actively part of the party in charge.
Yeah. I mean, you set for a party, and then that's your party for life, pretty much, unless you make the vocal change and a publicized change, which occasionally happens even here, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, you hear that? Yeah. If there would have been social media around back when I started teaching high school, I would have been fired that first week. I was asked to take a bumper sticker off my car.
Leave it on a positive note. You know, we lament the politics, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it is in other countries, and let's work to keep it from getting that way.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you for the work you do to work from keep it from getting that way. And also just, what I love about your show, first of all, your guests are amazing. I learned so much from the guests that you have on, but also, again, that part of, and not necessarily, and we're talking about advocating in Austin because, monies are going, education dollars are going to be at stake. But you just teach parents and teachers and students how to stand up and let their voice be heard for them in whatever capacity that is. And I love that about your show. It's all about education empowerment, hashtag that.
Well, yeah, many parents don't realize how much power they have in a school. A school will take the easy road a lot of times and just either give misinformation or just ignore a parent. And that's where sort of I come in to say if that parent reaches out to me, I will help them with the words, the statute, the education code needed to move the situation forward.
Absolutely.
It should be held hostage by a school.
So true. So true.
Doctor, before I let you go, one more big question. Last night I was at an event, and there were several parents that are very, very concerned about the fact that in a TEA contract, it says that a teacher is not to allow their political affiliations, their political insights, their religious affiliations, their religious insights into the classroom. But yet we see public ed teachers doing this all the time. How do we cure this ill?
Well, first of all, I will tell you a little dirty secret in public ed, and that is that we do not train our teachers in school ed law. I remember being very angry getting my second master's. I was actually taking ed master's as opposed to bilingual ed, and I had to take a school law class. I learned things about public education and the law and I had been in public education for 15 years by then.
Oh, wow.
And the many ways that a teacher and an educator can get fired, and I didn't know them. And so I'm going to tell you that many of our teachers, many of our administrators aren't aware of these things. They may sign on the dotted line, but they didn't read it. They didn't retain it. And so it's our job as really central office staff to remind our principals, to remind their teachers that doing any advocating from the teacher chair is just not allowed. And it's not only because it's in statute you can't, but it's just not the right thing to do.
Right.
And so being able to teach without bias is our constant work.
Yep, good point. Yeah, and that's tough on both sides. When you're getting your if you're the one that's able to get your voice across, let's say you're a Biden supporter and you're able to talk about that and talk about why you're pro choice or whatever the case may be. But then the other side can't do it. It's like, okay, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So we either all can talk about it or nobody can.
Well, certainly we would encourage kids and teachers to have kids debate.
Yes.
Somebody be the Biden side, somebody be the Trump side, and you collaborate with your team to come up with the points that you want to make, and then you bring them, and then maybe a third group is evaluating the debate, and that's a very healthy use of instructional time. But to do only one side would be totally unfair to the families, and I say families because right now we have mom's sitting right there, dad's sitting right there watching what's going on. And of course, that's how we're not finding these things out, right? We're finding out things that are that teachers teach that they got away with in the classroom because mom's in the room.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Now mom's aware.
It's a good point.
So-
Yep. And you'll hear from mom.
Well, I just think that it's imperative that we teach our teachers that in their contract, this is what it says you agree to do. And follow your. I think if everybody would follow their contract, I say this about lawyers too. If they would actually follow the rules of the court, follow the rule of law instead of creating their own, which I call lazy lawyering, because to them it makes common sense. Well, the law is not all necessarily about common sense because it's about equity, and equity doesn't always make common sense to all people. And so it's like, quit creating your own rules. Read your contracts, read your rules, follow those, and I think we'd be in much better shape.
Well, it would help if their principals also read the rules and made sure their teachers, followed the rules. So it's more than just the teachers, right?
Right.
It's making sure that the principals are monitoring the screens in
Right.
the classrooms and making sure that message is not getting out, if indeed it is. So there's more to it than just at the teacher chair. We have administrators who are part of that responsibility as well.
I agree, absolutely. Another big topic, something we might want to tackle on Ask Dr. Be Good. Because there's a lot of questions about that right now, and about engineering education. Are we going to start doing more? Russians are putting out twice as many engineers. Chinese, 30% more than we are engineers. And yet the Russian population is half our size, and the Chinese population is 1.5 times our size. Are we missing the boat there? Lots of good things to talk about coming up.
Well, and then another thing, Dr. Good, Ann from the crew has said, does that carry over to a teacher's social media? Obviously, that's a whole entire another topic. That may be another topic that we could, obviously you could do a 6-week series on your show, but maybe you could even touch on that in some of the upcoming weeks, because you do have teachers being fired, and some get their jobs back, some don't, from putting, maybe just putting one political name or one political affiliation out on their social media. So that's kind of an interesting topic as well.
I know we very definitely teach what they can and can't do through social media. And matter of fact, Texas has an ethics class. It's an all-day mandatory class, and a lot of it has to do with social media. And they refer to real cases. They don't have to make it up, because there are lots of teachers in Texas who have gone down a wrong road.
Right.
And so if you post a video of yourself after a wild night out, and you've got a drink in your hand, and you're alluding to having maybe smoked something you shouldn't have,
not a cigarette.
You get fired.
Yeah.
You will get fired.
Yeah.
You are a role model for your children in your classroom, and that includes the off hours. If you want to go party hard, just don't announce it on social media.
You don't have to post everything, folks.
No. So, yeah, those are all things that we work hard at making sure our teachers understand. It's a never-ending game, because we do have young teachers who have a different view of life than you and I do.
Right.
And so make sure that we cover those bases regularly is just part of a good administrator's work.
Well, love to have Dr. Good on all the time, and thank you so
Always
much for
fantastic
joining
Well, I
us
just had one
information.
little
and taking the
concern.
time out.
Oh, wait, Charles has a
We-
question.
has a
Gabrielle and
concern.
I noticed that door behind Dr. Be Good creaking open, and
probably
we
a
keep
puppy.
thinking there's somebody with a
It's a
knife going to be putting their hand through there with Halloween coming
Her
up.
husband Tom's going to be like, No, I have a feeling it's one of her
It was
dogs.
Lulu.
Yeah.
Lulu, the 60-pound pit dog. That's the last dog that was brought into my home by somebody else, my husband and me. She had to come in. She just
It looked a little creepy, like, uh-oh, what's going to happen?
Her dogs are very obsessed with her.
thanks for looking out for me.
That's funny.
That's so great.
That's
All right,
funny.
Have a
guys.
great day.
Well,
Dr.
Well, hold
Good.
on. Don't
Oh,
forget to catch Dr. Good
yes.
at the Ask Dr. Be Good show on the JP Kathy and the Crew Network on Thursdays at 6 o'clock
Nope.
and on Sundays
Louis
live at 8 a.m. And so don't forget to catch her.
Thank you.
Hey, and also ask her questions on her feed. She wants questions. She wants people to challenge her.
That's right. I do. I don't like a passive audience. I like a very participatory audience. And so trying to retrain people away from radio silence, because that's what
Right.
that's what we've trained people to not
To
be
be polite,
participating when they're
right.
listening to the radio. Now we've got podcast opportunities, and I would love for people to ask questions and just participate. So thank you for that reminder. And I've got to get better reminding people when I do the show. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, and we
Good
could
stuff.
even throw some challenging questions out. Like, do you want college professors, to indoctrinate your children?
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, but should we be following contracts? Should we, are teachers teaching, or are teachers socializing children? Are principals teaching teachers
Let them-
like they're supposed to? There's so many things we can
Let
throw
them
out and
practice
challenge them.
socialism at the college university just so they get an understanding of what real socialism is like.
They already are now. What are
I
you
was
talking
gonna
about?
say,
Yeah.
that would
too
not be
late.
good.
I'll tell you, Gail Meeks has chimed in. So I'd love to know all the rights kids have that have IEPs or special needs accommodations.
Oh, that's a great topic.
Another great topic.
Okay, well, that's
We're adding
that's
to your
an
list.
easy one. And we've done past shows on that, but that always is good, especially in this environment that's so fluid right now. Everything's changing, and we haven't gotten as good as we need to get with teaching SPED kids remotely, because there are some fragile special needs kids who
Right.
really don't need to be at school right now,
Right.
and so we are getting better at that.
But that is a challenge. And then, maybe before IEP and ARD season comes up, that would be a great, talk about it on our show. And then you do a show on it as well, because, and having been a former special ed teacher, I think back to some of my kids and some of the IEP requirements I had to meet on those kids daily, weekly, monthly, all this kind of stuff. And there are things that remotely, I don't know how I would have had a mind shift or a paradigm shift. I don't know how I would have met those IEP goals. Bless
Well,
you.
certainly, bless you.
Thank you.
Certainly, that's part of our ARD talk. Our ARDs, of course, are virtual now.
Right.
And that's all, if a child is choosing, or if the family is choosing to have the child remain home, then those are all new discussions that, have to be done. Now, I will say that we've gotten very good quickly at doing small group virtually. And we actually build into the school day the opportunity for either the special ed teacher or the special ed TA to meet in small group or one-on-one with those kids so they
okay.
can get their minutes.
Okay, good.
And I will talk also about what happens when those minutes aren't met and what a parent can do. So we may touch on it during
Fantastic.
dyslexia on Sunday, because dyslexia, even though it was ignored for many years by our state government, we still had to do it. It wasn't funded, but we still had to do it.
Right.
So we'll talk about those special services, and we'll weave in some IEP talk then.
All right. Sounds
Awesome.
great. Thank you, Dr.
Thanks,
Good.
Dr. Good. You rock.
Always a pleasure.
Have a blessed
Thanks.
day. All right.
You too.
So
Great information.
we're getting
Great
ready
information.
at 8:20, 8:30 in that time frame. We're going to do a game called the Trump versus Biden comparison
And
game.
you have got you, the audience, the crew. Our crew is going to tell us, and we're going to give you time, so you can pop on there and you can say, is it a Biden platform or plank, or is it a President Trump
That's
platform or plank? So you're going to be our game show audience, if you will.
Absolutely. And I'm going to email Charles the link that I'm using, and please don't cheat, but it'll be there. The link that I'm using to show the comparison between the two. So I'd love to have you chime in and be a part of that. So just get on our social media. You can go to Linktree at JP or Linktree / JP Kathy and the crew. Sign up for our social media there, and then start chiming in on our social media. And so we would love to have you do that and be a part of this, because this is going to be a fun game. And what we're going to do is JP's getting ready to order, and Kathy are getting ready to order some masks and some hats and things like that. So if you are a cumulative point-wise right there along with Kathy and I in regards to being able to beat us in guessing, then we'll send you a hat or a mask when we get them in.
Good time.
So just send us on private message. Send us your information.
Or come up here,
Or
if
come
you
up
want
and
to.
grab
Come up
it.
on a Friday and grab some barbecue or something
Some
with
lunch,
us.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Or pick it up when you come up here for the telethon on November 11th on Veterans Day from 7:30 until 5:30. We've got
Push it, girl. Push it.
We've got podcast galore. We've got several of our new podcasts that are starting. One kicks off that day, and that's the one with the disabled American veterans. We will have the host of that weekly podcast come in, and he will introduce the show that day. Our show will be on. My brother and his buddy Professor Nolan, their show on sobriety and how do you stay sober, will be getting ready to kick off around that time. So they'll be in. We've got. I know we've obviously Gail and Steve Meeks from know
Right.
and become
Money
a
Link.
hashtag Money Maniac.
Money
They're
Maniac.
good stuff. Hopefully Jeremy Rosenthal will be up here from the Lawyer Show. I know Andrew and Andrew White and Chuck Wright will be up here.
From Kilroy's
Yeah, they've got a
Conversation.
great show every Saturday morning. Who else do we have?
Well,
Dr. Good,
well, we,
obviously. We're hoping we have her.
Well, we have Lisa Chastain from
Yes,
Heart of a Texas-
Heart
Heart of
Soul
Texas
Women,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's the new show that we just started Monday, and that's every Monday at 10 a.m. And have gotten some really nice comments about the show, and just very, very excited, very fortunate that we have a show like this on the JP Kathy and the Crew Network. So thank you, Lisa. Who knows who else we're going to have up here?
So, but,
we've got another podcast. Starting probably within the next couple of weeks, we have a production meeting Monday. Two young men,
Yep.
both 20. I think they're both 20.
Both 20,
Yeah, both
yep.
20 now. And they're going to be talking about all things relevant to kids their age. One of the young men had made some taken a wrong path, but has righted his path and wants to kind of tell other people what pitfalls to avoid.
Well, and how to jump
love
on
that.
and reach out to young people.
And then they're going to be part of a really fun show you're going to be doing.
Well, and I'm going to be dragging Chambrielle into that. We're going to be doing a gaming
I
show.
love it.
And I'm going to have 4 or 5 people on that deal. And we're going to be
Love
doing
it.
console gaming and computer gaming. And so we'll be trying out games and partying it up on
Okay,
Twitch.
I'm going to if you can let CJ be on an episode, he'll think
Yeah.
I'm hip again.
Absolutely.
Well, has he ever thought I was hip? No.
Probably not.
No. That's
But
a
that's
big
okay,
no.
though. But I'm going to come back around with what Kathy said. November the 11th, we're launching DAV. They're the sponsor of the show that is going to be coming on about veterans and disabled American veterans. And we're going to be doing a telethon from 7:30 to 5:30 here at Venture X Studios in Frisco, Texas. And so we want you to come up. I believe we're going to have breakfast, a little breakfast provided, a little lunch provided.
I hope so, because we'll promote whatever restaurant is interested in helping out with that. We will be promoting you. Oh, some flicky football
Player,
No.
Flicky football.
Flicky
Flicky football.
We're
That's
not
not
letting
a
that
thing.
stick. We're not letting it stick. I can't let it stick. I can't be a part of that.
Notebook paper. Okay, notebook.
football.
Okay, now I was gonna say
Notebook
folded
football.
paper. Paper football.
Don't let it stick.
So there's going to be a paper football tournament. Closer
Well,
in the
we
closer
say
in the
tournament,
evening.
just
We'll have
playing.
some beer and wine.
Just
have a little
playing.
happy
Playing.
hour.
I'm not ready to say tournament just yet.
okay,
I'm not
Chris,
We
we'll
gotta
be
have
organized.
enough
playing.
teams to be a tournament.
I'm not
playing
organized
it.
yet. I'm
We'll
not
be
organized.
playing
We got to
it.
get organized. I got to talk to commissioners and get them on board. But anyways, November 11th, please come on up here anytime between 7:30 and 5:30. Be a part of the telethon. We'll let you push your business. We'll let you push your agenda. Okay, just kidding. Just your business.
We're working on possibly doing some indoor and outdoor stuff to help with social distancing as well.
Correct. We'll be social. Wear your masks,
yes.
and follow all those rules as well. Plus, we got a big open space, and so we'd love to have you come up. We already know some
Yeah,
crew
you can
members are coming.
you can social
Michelle's
distance.
coming up.
Yep.
Fred's coming up. I believe Gail and Steve, I think, are coming up.
Well, I hope so, because we need to have them
So,
talk about their show.
They've got Wi-Fi here. If you want
yep,
to do some work
Wi-Fi.
while you're
Yeah,
here,
come
you
take a
can.
tour. Meet Chance, meet Leon, meet Brandon, meet Kim, meet all the folks out here who
7:30
make
to
this place
5:30.
work. Yep.
7:30 to 5:30, November the 11th. All right. Enough chit chat and chatterboxing. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in Houston. Again, this is something that has got to hit close to home. It has to wake us up and stop ignoring the reality of things. And that is that we had Sergeant Preston with HPD respond to the Richmond Manor Apartments at the 2600 block of Hawley Hall in El Mundo near Highway 288 at 9:30 a.m. And this veteran officer has now died from multiple gunshot wounds to his head and his shoulder. And so, why? It was a domestic violence response. He was getting ready to retire. This man lived with his parents to take care of them at 51. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And it's at the hand, and this has been confirmed, at the hand of an illegal immigrant, illegal alien.
Yeah.
And he's not the first. And he had a record as well.
I know so many people, and even right now during the campaign, are still busting President Trump's chops. Let's say that again.
You did a JP word combination.
I'm like, there you go.
But you called him President Chumps.
No, it's because Chump and Trump. Yeah, okay, there you go. So Chops and Trump. That was
funny. President
and
Chumps.
that's with not much coffee. So. Oh gosh, no! I need more coffee. So
I should have brought you the coffee, not.
There you go. Yeah, I may need a second cup.
Coffee,
I may need that second cup.
Right,
I love you, Charles. But the crew's like, no, do not give her a second cup of coffee for the love of God. But they've said, building the wall, that's mean, and why do we have borders, and why are you checking people's status when they come over? And again, and we're not saying and the president has not said that everybody who comes across the border illegally is a criminal. But unfortunately, there are people who are criminals who come across the border, who commit horrific crimes like this, and it goes uncharted or unnoticed, unmarked. I mean, it doesn't go down as... it doesn't go down as this person is somebody you need to watch. So you don't know. So if you're a police officer or God forbid, you're the innocent, spouse or partner getting beat up, you may not know of that person's criminal history because they're basically just floating around America doing whatever they want. And then what I want to see, this is an African-American gentleman who,
or just a black man. He's a black gentleman.
Man. Yeah, he's a black gentleman who has served his city, his state, his country well, his family well, with honor, had an honorable career. Oh, at the end of that career, I can't even imagine 40 years in law enforcement. God bless him. Bless you, sir. 23-year-old daughter, living at his parents' home to help take care of them during this pandemic. And this man is no longer with us. Don't make this political. Something is very, bless you.
Thanks.
Something is so wrong about this scenario. And unfortunately, we've heard of this time and time before. And I want to know, and I haven't really, I was doing an update on my iPad, so I haven't haven't received any news feeds. I'd like to know from the crew, has anybody heard anything from Black Lives Matter about the death of this man? Has anybody from the defund the police efforts, has anybody from that effort said, well, if we would have sent a social worker, which is what a large majority of them recommend, sending a social worker into a situation where you have a domestic violence dispute, so we would have had a 32-year-old, female social worker killed who's making next to nothing for helping society? There's so much wrong with this, and I want to know if the defund the police and if Black Lives Matter, if they say anything about this death today.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Ann Guzman says he was released from jail 2 days earlier and given back his weapon. Coach Quigley said,
What?
Yeah, I thought you knew that.
No.
That's what I'm saying. He has a record.
Well,
He's
I knew
already
he had
been
a
arrested.
record, but I didn't realize he was giving his weapon back to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Such a sad incident involving another police officer murdered by a released criminal due to COVID-19. And so, thank you, Michelle. I'll tell you, you guys are having to live through my allergies because I'm not going to take a day off.
Yeah, poor JP. I know.
Yeah. And then Gail makes an interesting observation. They aren't showing BLM and Antifa as much on TV anymore, probably because it was hurting the Dems.
Oh, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
Interesting perspective, and I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And so...
Interesting.
And here's the thing, right? How do we convince good people to join the force if you have all these forces around them not supporting them, and yet they walk into this is what people don't realize. They walk into this every day. They have no idea what a basic traffic stop is going to look like. They have no idea what a basic domestic violence call is going to look like. Or, call out because my son is acting odd. My son is punching holes in the wall. And a police officer walks into this not knowing what they're walking into because there's a bunch of doors and walls. And so to just say blankly, hey, we need to defund the police are bad. I've always said this, Kathy, and you know this, especially in my own, because I was a mentor for the Commission on Judicial Conduct.
Right.
And so I would mentor judges who wouldn't follow the law. There's about 10%.
Sorry, I have a hard time. You're a judge. No duh.
Well,
Isn't that like the biggest no duh? Like the first thing, hey, by the way, follow the law yourself.
Well, but sometimes people
I know.
people believe that they can
Hence the
they can
reason
make
for
it
the
up.
mentorship program that you were part of.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, the bottom line is that about 10% of every field of anything has bad apples in it.
Oh, well, teachers.
But you
know,
don't-
and everybody's like, oh, all teachers are bad. Well, no, you're going to have a teacher who does something
Why do I have my
inappropriate.
hands up? What am I doing?
Because you're like, oh, Lord, have mercy, help me with
Is
the
that what it
sneezing.
is? Oh.
You're like, oh, Lord, please
Freeze.
give me grace.
Freeze.
Yeah, give me grace
Put
for
your
a
hands
second.
up.
You're pulling a Chris Wallace.
Well, I guess what I was thinking is
But you're right.
don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, and doctors. I mean, there are doctors who go in and, take advantage of patients. And there are bad people in all walks of life. But you're right. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. And then, Ann's throwing this out there. It's a little bit off topic, but she says, how can BLM apparel be allowed in the voting place? Well, hold on a minute. Hold on. I've got a thought. It's interesting. Kathy and I have a joint friend who had to take her mask off because her mask had, what did her mask say again? It was Catherine Gibbs.
Or talking about Trump's. Yeah. She's had.
But it didn't say Trump on it. It said.
Well, she's only got one mask and it says Trump. So.
Well, I thought there was something that
There was
she
somebody
had.
else
Was it
who-
somebody else who had something that didn't say Trump on it, but it meant the
Oh,
Trump
are you talking
campaign?
about the T-shirt that said I support my president or I support
No,
President Trump?
'cause this was
that
something
person
they-
had turned it inside out.
They walked into the voting booth and had to take their mask off, and it was like MAGA 2020 or something like
Right.
that. And it's like it didn't say vote for the president. It didn't say President Trump's name, but they couldn't wear it into the voting location, so they went in with no mask on, and they kept her socially distanced. And they did everything they were supposed to do,
Right.
so that was good. They went back
And
and they
usually
wiped
they have
after her.
they have other disposable masks.
Yeah, they're
that
like,
you
yeah,
can
I'm not
have.
wearing it.
Yeah, okay.
So, but they handled it right, and they
Right.
let them vote, which I thought was a good thing.
Right.
So I guess my thing is that on the voting booth question, and you're right. I mean, are they allowing it? Probably, because they're probably too afraid to say no. You can't wear that in here. But they're not afraid to tell you if you're wearing a Trump.
You can wear a BLM
then-
shirt into a voting booth.
So there you go.
There's already been a dispute on the records during. I want to say it was a runoff. It was before the general election started, and it was deemed that they could wear that, even though there were folks who took both sides of that because they said, well, no, that's part of a political movement. But it was determined that that's okay. So, for example, I could go in and I could wear a voting pro-life or I'm pro-life shirt.
Yeah, but BLM is a political movement.
It is, but it was deemed
pro-life
okay.
Pro-life is a person movement.
It's a belief.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a person movement, right? BLM is organized. They are a political agent. They are a PAC. They send money to people. So anyways, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see. And here's my thing. I want everybody to understand this as well, because you're not going to peg me in a corner. You're not going to peg Betsy here in a corner. The bottom line
change
is,
your name to Betsy?
I just did.
Okay.
Bottom line is this: if this was happening to Barack Obama, I would defend Barack Obama, even though I don't believe in his policies, because I don't believe that anybody should be treated inequitably. I believe that equity has to reign over everything. That's what I did for a living.
That's the only way you have a
It
real
has
fair
to be
choice.
just.
Yeah.
So if you treat either side this way,
Yeah.
if social media was stifling Joe Biden, for as much as I can't stand
Yeah, that's
Joe
what
Biden, and by the way, on the record, I haven't liked Joe Biden for like 30 years. I mean, this isn't
Oh,
new.
we've busted his chops for
Well,
forever. and
I've
a
always
day.
thought the guy was slippery. Like every time I go hear him speak, somewhere I need a shower. So that's my
That's
thing.
proving to be more true.
Yeah, and again, this is before he ever decided to run for president, before he ever became a vice president. I thought he did and said some some pretty horrible things. And if you look back, they're headlines. You can read them, for goodness
Oh,
sake.
he's
My
got it
point
from
is,
the 70s. He called, what
Right.
did he refer to African American children in schools when segregation was
yeah.
going on? So we're going to let them come in from the jungle or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I know I don't have that quote exactly right, but he referred to them in that manner. And nobody's up in arms about a man who was in office and said that.
yeah.
Oh.
So,
Wah, wah.
bottom line is this. I don't care who it is, treat everybody equitably and fairly. And that's where I'm at. And that's how I lived my life. That's how I live my life. And that's how I raised my daughter to live her life as well. So bottom line is, it doesn't matter which candidate, treat them well. With that being said, it is about time to go into our comparison. Of course, here is the article that I'm going to be going off of. If you want to follow along, this is a fun game.
Can you send me that so I can pull it up? I'm having a hard time reading it.
Yes.
Where's this from? Because I love
can.
this.
So this is from 2020 election
Procon.
procon.org. And so, Charles, are you able to put that in the feed from what I sent you?
Oh, yeah.
I might be able to do that. Hold on just a second. Let me go to Restream Chat and do this.
Yeah, maybe you can do that,
fine.
John.
Oh, easy, Charles. That's what you get paid the little bucks for.
Wow.
That's what you get paid the little bucks for.
I have it on the screen.
There, I put it in the
Oh, and while
the
we're doing
Restream.
that, and we would be remiss if we didn't ask the crew to pray for Officer Preston's
And his
family
mom and dad and his daughter.
mom and dad and his daughter. Just God bless his family. Can't even imagine the pain, because like you get to the end of a career, and I know when your family member is a police officer, or firefighter, or a first responder, you are in the military. You're like, oh, when is retirement?
Right.
You get so close. So please pray for their family. Please pray for their family.
All right. So,
you
I've
got
put,
it in there.
I did. I put the link in the feed. Feel free to jump on that. Don't cheat.
Yippee.
Don't cheat. But I'm going to go down this. If you've got a guess, jump in there and let us know what your guess is. And if you can
Guess for what?
I'm about to ask a
Okay.
comparison, and who is it, right? So let's talk crime and justice. Should police departments be defunded, if not abolished? If the policy is to defund the police and abolish them altogether, is that a Trump or is that a Biden policy decision?
And we're giving the crew time to answer,
Right.
right, on the feed.
So that's the first question we're going to ask. The next question is going to be, should the U.S. ban assault weapons? Is that a Trump policy to ban them, or is that a Biden policy to ban them? Which presidential candidate would ban assault weapons in the United States?
How do you get rid of the big old pop-up on front of it? Doggone it.
I don't know. Number 3, should federal or state
Block
governments
pop-ups.
implement ban the box legislation, which prevents employers from asking about a job applicant's criminal history? Would President Trump support a ban the box legislation, or would Joe Biden support that? Crime and justice. Should the U.S. end the cash bail system? Now, this is a very interesting question. And I honestly, this should be taken up by the U.S. Supreme Court and probably go through the federal court system. Would President Trump support getting rid of the cash bail system, or would Joe Biden be in favor of getting rid of the cash bail system? Crime and justice. Should the death penalty be allowed? Biden for it, or Trump for it, or against it? So chime in with your answers on that. We're going to come back and I'm going to show you how and each one of them have come out. And it's interesting how they have vacillated on some of their answers. And so type them into the feed.
Is this all under the crime thing?
Yes, it's all under the crime section. And Charles has it up on the front as well. So these are the first 5 crime and justice questions.
Chambriel had a good idea that you
Yeah.
should have said.
Yes.
It should have said, "Who am I?"
Well, yeah, but I don't
And
have
then they
that
could
on
have said. Then you ask the question,
That-
and then
That'll
they
be
can
the
pick
next.
question.
That'll be next Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Because who am I is not. So I'm going to do it like I did with McCain and Obama.
Oh, okay.
So I did this I did this in court a lot because people would tell me I'm voting for da 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 da. So I would do who am I, right?
Hmm.
You know, I'm in favor of. You know, I'm a pro-choice candidate, and I believe abortion should be allowed across this country. Who am I? And they're like, well,
Gotcha.
you're John McCain. Yeah, well, I'm not, but that's okay.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, so we're going to do that next Wednesday. Today's just a
I must
comparison.
be, I'm on the wrong thing, 'cause I'm taking the thing myself to see. My thing's showing me that I agree with President Trump on everything.
Well, yeah,
I must be. I think I'm on a different page because I don't have all the fancy colors you have.
Oh, I don't know. It's right there. I don't know. All right, so let's go through it real quick. And so here's what's interesting. So if you look at the procon.org's answers, it would say that both Biden and Trump are against defunding the police department and abolishing it. However, when you click on the cons, and this is a great way to learn who you might want to vote for and really get into the issues rather than voting for what makes them popular, right? So this is what Biden says. I don't want to defund the police. I
Okay.
want to get police more money in order to deal with the things they badly need, from making sure they have access to community policing, that they also have in the department social workers, psychologists, people, in fact, can handle those god-awful problems that a cop has to have 4 degrees to handle. But here's the editor's note. While Biden has stated he supports the urgent need for reform and has talked about redirecting police funds to other programs, including those for mental health, a campaign spokesperson clarified that Biden is against defunding. I'm going to tell you, Biden is going to go lockstep and barrel with AOC and her group.
He follows the
If
squad.
you don't think for a moment that Biden gets into office and doesn't want to defund the police, you are a fool, or divert those funds. And here's why.
Right.
The reason why Biden has changed his rhetoric and the reason why there's an editor's note there is because they had to soften their position to appeal to America as a whole. Because the people that believe in defunding or abolishing or redirecting police funds is small. It's not that people don't believe in reform. It's that people don't believe in abolishing and defunding. And he had to change and lighten his mode.
Well, this is one of those things where, you know, for the most part, a conservative, I'm saying for the most part, I know there are conservatives that aren't this way, or there are people who say they're Republicans who are not this way. They will stick to their guns even if it's not popular in the polls. Democrats, especially when they're running for president, are very go with the flow. What did this crowd say? What did that crowd say? And you'll hear them say one thing at one rally and one thing at another one, at one speaking engagement, one at another. I'm going to go to the Democrat National Convention, and JP, I know you know where I'm going with this. Not once, and this is when Chicago's burning, Portland's burning, DC, you know, people are, you know, violently taking down statues, trying to, storm a church and destroy a church. Literally, people are dying in the streets. There is looting and rioting all over, and you can't deny it. And Joe Biden didn't even reference it the entire week. Nobody on the stage the entire week referenced the fact that Joe Citizen was dying in the street.
Yeah. All right. So what is President Trump's response? And Charles has got it up on the screen. Not that you can read that necessarily because we can't zoom in on it. He can, but he'll be able to put it on the big screen. President Trump is emphatic. There won't be defunding. There won't be dismantling of our police, and there's not going to be any disbanding of our police. Our police have been letting us live in peace, and we want to make sure we don't have any bad actors in there. And the president's been that way the whole time. There's been no softening of his position, no changing of his position. All right, Biden or Trump? Who wants to ban assault weapons? Can anybody guess? You should have already put it in the feed. Go to our social media. You can go to Linktree, sign up for it all. We'd love for you to chime in. Well, guess what? Big shocker here. Joe Biden wants to ban assault weapons. Yep. No doubt about it. Quote, the ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that Biden, along with Senator Feinstein, secured in 1994, reduced the lethality of mass shootings. Whatever. Biden will ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. While working to pass this legislation, Biden will also use his executive authority. Did you hear that? Executive authority to ban the importation of assault weapons.
And again, so that's an executive order that doesn't have to go through Congress or the Senate. It's just the president says this is how it shall be.
President Trump. Gun control does not reduce crime. It has consistently failed to stop violence. Americans are entitled to protect their families, their property, and themselves. And so originally he had come out and said, I certainly stand by my opposition to gun control when it comes to taking guns from law-abiding citizens. And so, again, President Trump stands on the fact that he is not willing to ban assault weapons. and you should be allowed to protect your family. And here's the thing, too. When you think of the Second Amendment, right, think of it from the times of when it was written, when foreign government was on our land trying to control us and take control. It allowed us to match their arms with our arms so we could defend ourselves and our country, right, so that we couldn't. Well, we now have tanks. So, when you talk about the Second Amendment, if you want to stay relative, then you should stay relative to the point of we have to be able to match what our government
our enemy
can
has.
do. Well, what our
Yeah,
government
yeah.
can do so we can avoid tyranny.
Right.
And so, AR-14s, assault weapons should be allowed.
Do you have a tank?
No, but I want one.
I would love to have a
Arnold
tank.
Schwarzenegger has a tank.
Oh, lucky duck.
I know, right?
That would be cool.
All right. Number 3, should
If you
federal...
get a tank, can I drive it?
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Oh, should drive it. Should state governments implement ban-the-box legislation, which prevents employers from asking about a job applicant's criminal history? Both sides are for this. And, at some point, we do have to look into prison reform, criminal justice reform. One of the things that I do disagree with this on is the fact that when you have certain offenses that are committed, you have to know about it so you don't put children in harm's way. And so that would be my
For
thing.
what would be an example? Because I know you're probably speaking from
Sexual assault.
experience. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
That kind of thing. So Biden is clear on this. He says he encourages further adoption of these policies at the state and local level. This effort will include any automatic restoration of firearms. And then President Trump, he says on this that, let's see, he says Trump signed into law the National Defense Authorization Act, which includes the Fair Chance Act, which will take effect on December 20th, 2021, and will prohibit the federal government and contractors from inquiring about a job applicant's criminal history prior to conditional job offers for most jobs. And again, you saw that for most jobs. So there is some protection, but it does allow people to get back to work.
Can I go back to the tank thing real quick? Elizabeth, who was a
yes.
dear friend of mine from, gosh, we've known each other since we were in 6th, 7th grade. She said, you did have a tank in high school. Let the record show, my first car was an Army Green 1972 Chevrolet Caprice. We called it the tank. I mean, literally, it had a different zip code for the front seat and the back seat. My parents knew, my grandfather gave me his old car, but yep, I did have a tank. I forgot about that. Thanks, Elizabeth. I love you. Good times in that car.
You are so funny. All right. On to the next question. Should the U.S. end the cash bail system? Democrats are for this. Not sure why they would be for this. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, as a former judge, I don't understand their stance. What's up on
Houston's
that?
been doing this as well. Well, it lends to them thinking that it's only for rich people and that it's disproportionate and harms low-income people. I don't know that I agree with that. Cash bail is the modern-day debtor's prison. The cash bail system incarcerates people who are presumed innocent, and it disproportionately harms low-income individuals. Biden will lead a national effort to end cash bail and reform our pretrial system by putting in place instead a system that is fair and does not inject further discrimination or bias into the process. Okay, that's great. Love the rhetoric. What program? There have been no details on that, so I can't wait to hear that. Now, on the other end of it, President Trump, not in favor. So sad to see what is happening in New York, where Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio are letting out 900 criminals.
DeBosio, isn't that what you used to call
DeBosio.
him?
Some hardened and bad onto the sidewalks of our rapidly declining, because of them, city. The radical left Dems are killing our city's NYPD commissioner is resigning. Of course, I'm going to side with President Trump on that. I don't think we end the cash bail system. I do not think it's inequitable. And I am curious to see if the Supreme Court ends up weighing in on this at some point. And I say that because there has been challenges out of Houston, out of Houston, Texas, where Houston has gone away with this. And I'm curious to see what the Supreme Court comes up with. All right. Should the death penalty be allowed? It's interesting. It says that Biden is now con to this. We need to confront racial and income-based disparities in our justice system and eliminate overly harsh sentencing for nonviolent crimes. As president, Biden will eliminate the death penalty. Over 160 individuals who've been sentenced to death in this country since 1973 have later been exonerated because we cannot ensure we get death penalty cases right every time. Biden will work to pass legislation to eliminate the death penalty at the federal level and incentivize states to follow the federal government's example. You know, again, I am not in favor, especially nowadays with DNA testing that can be done.
Well, and we know what he's referring to back in the day, and this is
Yeah.
where Democrats keep going back to like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where you did not have the tools and the resources you have now. Now, if someone rapes somebody and murders them, and you've got a DNA sample, it is what it is. That's the
Right.
right person. You've got the right person.
Right.
You know, I just wonder, you know, the Democrats are always like, well, we want to talk about this and we want to deal. And I get that. There was a time for talking a long time ago before that person became a rapist. You know,
Right.
You rape somebody in my family, I want to watch you go down.
Until they start cloning people.
Oh,
So, staying
Where's-
on topic.
where's cloning on the presidential thing?
No. Stay directed. Charles,
he's like, JP's like, children.
Chambriel, smack him.
Yeah, Chambriel.
Don't let him do that.
Get
All right.
him back in line.
Where does President Trump live on this? He says, today I'm also directing the Department of Justice to propose legislation ensuring that those who commit hate crimes and mass murders face the death penalty, and that this capital punishment be delivered quickly, decisively, and without years of needless delay. To go on the end of his needless delay part, there is a ton of time that happens between someone actually goes and faces the death penalty, where there are, tons of trials, tons of evidence rehashed, and time to get DNA testing done if that's necessary.
Oh, if you go to if death penalty cases, if you are on death row, you're on death row sometimes for 10 years. I mean,
Or longer.
you're long. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. And there have been plenty of times, I know just in recent history here in Texas, where, you know, Governor Perry, Governor Bush, Governor Perry, Governor Abbott have pardoned someone from the death penalty at the end because of new evidence that came to light because of technology.
So
If you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime. Is that what that's saying?
That's
is, I think?
that's
Yeah.
right. All right, let's talk one more crime and justice issue. Should universal background checks for gun purchases be made law? Biden pro, Biden con, Trump pro, Trump con. Joe Biden absolutely in favor of this. And so here's what he has to say about that. In the months ahead, Biden will also detail his plan to tackle the public health epidemic of gun violence in America, starting with the universal background checks and bans on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Again, now we're calling it a health epidemic. Interesting that we use the term epidemic.
How's that have to do with health?
Because he's unhealthy. All right, where does President Trump stand on this? President Trump is also pretty clear in his messaging as well. So Congress is looking at very strongly bipartisan. I put in certain parameters, which you somewhat know about. I'm also very concerned with the Second Amendment, more so than most presidents would be. People don't realize we have a very strong background check right now. You go in to buy a gun, you have to sign up. There are a lot of background checks that have been approved over the years, so I'll have to see what it is. But Congress is meeting bipartisan. A lot of people want to see something happen, but just remember this big mental problem, and we do have a lot of background checks right now. And so, you know, President Trump saying our current system, if we will utilize it and put it in place and make it effective by just using it correctly, then we would be fine. And so that is his stance on universal background checks. All right, let's jump to domestic policy. This is a fun one.
Oh, yes.
So, should Confederate statues be taken down? Is Biden for that, against it? President Trump for it or against it? Should the District of Columbia be given statehood? Where are we at on that? Is President Biden for or against, or Vice President Biden for or against, President Trump for or against? And should the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center remain open? All right, so let's go to the first one. Should the statues be taken down? Of course, Joe Biden is for that. The idea of bringing down all those Confederate monuments to Confederate soldiers and generals who strongly supported secession and maintaining slavery and going to war to do it, I think those statues belong in museums. They don't belong in the public place. I can't understand the anger. I can understand the anger and anguish that people feel by having, for years and years, have been under the statue of Robert E. Lee. You know, and Robert E. Lee has a very interesting history, by the way. Very interesting history, and especially on that particular question. Also, President Trump, where's he on that? President Trump says, well, no, I'm now against that. I don't think we should take them down. This cruel campaign of censorship and exclusion violates everything we hold dear as Americans. They want to demolish our heritage so they can impose a new oppressive regime in its place. Where does socialism begin? Socialism begins by washing out the past and trying to instill a new past. And that's what's happening when you tear down statues. I would absolutely not want to have anything torn down that's in relationship to the Holocaust.
No,
I would want to be reminded of what happened so it doesn't happen
again. Because unfortunately, you've got a whole generation coming up where you've even got some teachers teaching that, the Holocaust, maybe not so much. Okay, it did happen. There are still survivors of the Holocaust. Ask them how that was. Well, and what about, I think it's in Galveston, is that where that Emancipation Proclamation statue is? And BLM and Antifa were trying to, and rioters and looters were trying to tear that down. That's a good part of history where, guess what? Slavery's gone. So to me, that's like, why would you want to take that statue down when it celebrates?
Because you have certain groups that want to wash out the past, so they can
but
rewrite
then
the past.
You're doomed to repeat it, though.
Well, or change it by becoming a socialist nation, a Marxist nation.
And that's that
how
slippery slope.
socialism-
That's how it starts.
Well, that's how socialism gains roots.
You are
by
correct.
eradicating the past. Should the District of Columbia be given statehood? Again, Joe Biden says, no. Do you support D.C. becoming 51st state? Absolutely. I have for the past 28 years.
He wants 2 more senators.
Yeah, exactly. And President Trump says, no.
Yeah.
We do not. D.C. will never be a state. You mean District of Columbia state? Why? So we can have 2 more Democrat senators and 5 more congressmen? No, thank you.
Yep.
That'll never happen. And it's true. I mean, just walk the streets of D.C. and you'll know. And so, and D.C. was never intended to be a state. It's a place for foreign governments to have their embassies. So you have a lot of people that live in D.C. that aren't even from this country. And so, no, I agree. Absolutely not. Guantanamo Bay. Should it remain open or no? Joe Biden says that he continues to support the closing of the detention center, and that's where he leaves it at. President Trump says no comment on this. He says not clearly pro or con on this issue. I think it's crazy. It costs a fortune to operate, and I think it's crazy. We're looking at a lot of things. Look at President Obama said that Guantanamo Bay would be closed, and he never got it done. And again, 8 years. He had 8 years to do that. It's also kind of like when you talk about Barack Obama's immigration policy and how many people he actually detained versus what Donald Trump did. Again, we forget because we only want to believe
those are facts.
it.
Those are the facts. We want to go on emotions and the quick. Oh, well, somebody had a tweet on Twitter about it, and we want to go with what they said because they're my friend, and it makes me emotional. That way, I can get up in arms. Well, yeah, go back and look. And they've done like snapshots during President Trump's presidency showing how many people had been detained by Obama at that time, and those numbers exceeded Trump's numbers. And so I'm like, okay, so why weren't you mad at him? And then you go back to Joe Biden. Let's not forget, this is a man who has been part of the system. He's been a government employee being paid by we the people. He was paid for 47 years. So all of these things, he's like, well, when I'm president, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, where were you when you were a representative and when you were vice president? Why didn't you get stuff done then?
Right. I agree. Now talk about net neutrality rules.
This is a big old buzz on the internet.
Yeah,
All the young kids are aware of this one.
Joe Biden still has no policy on net neutrality rules. Won't take a position. Won't take a stance. President Trump, not for him.
Yep.
President Trump is very clear. We just won the big court case on net neutrality rules when a federal appeals court upheld the FCC repeal of net neutrality regulations. A great win for the future and speed of the internet. We will lead too many big things, including 5G. Congratulations to the FCC and its chairman, Ajit Pai.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very much in favor of not having net neutrality regulations. It's ridiculous.
And it's interesting. The younger generation is also on the same page. so that's one of those that would be interesting if you're asking, 19, 20-year-old voter, where do you think President Trump stands on net neutrality, and where do you think Biden stands on net neutrality? Because that's definitely where they've got an interest in that, because that's been their way of life. And I think most of the folks, if you interviewed them, wouldn't know where President Trump stands, and they would be very shocked to find out, well, Biden doesn't even have a thought on it.
Right. And I'm not sure, Gail, what happened to the McKinney statue. We'll have to ask Chad Green. Reach out to Chad and ask
that's
him.
a good idea. Yeah.
That's a good idea. I think that they voted to take it down.
I think so, and I think it was going to be put somewhere else, like inside
Right.
somewhere. I mean, it was going to be done the right way, but I think so.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
All right. Getting on to a very interesting question right now. Should recreational marijuana be legal federally? And so now, and of course, this is interesting. So, would you think Biden would be pro or con on that? Would he be in favor of making it legal federally, or would he be opposed to that? What would you think? Don't look at the thing.
I'm not. I'm trying not to. I would just going on an assumption, which is not good to do. Again, this is just me speculating because I have not done research on this. I would assume that he would be in favor of legalizing marijuana in all the states. That's an assumption I've made, and the assumption I make, the only reference I'm making it to is their party platform, and the Democrat National platform includes legalization of marijuana. So if he stands up for his platform, which usually the presidential candidates do, then it would seem that he would be in keeping with them.
So interestingly enough, Joe Biden says no. Should not be.
There you go.
I think states should be able to make a judgment to legalize recreational marijuana. I think that it's okay. But let me tell you, the truth of the matter is there's not nearly been enough evidence acquired as to whether or not it is a gateway drug. It's a debate. Before I legalize it nationally, I want to make sure we know a lot more about the science behind it. Now, of course, I would tell you, Joe Biden, just go to Israel. Israel's done over 100 years of research. The hospital in Tel Aviv there, and they can tell you all that you need to know. President Trump says
there are things that show that it's a gateway drug, or it's something that kind of slows your roll down.
Sure.
Well, in the editor's note, though, he goes on. His spokesperson said that he said, "I don't think anybody should be a criminal for smoking it."
Well,
they're all about decriminalization.
There's a difference between criminalization and making it legal.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
and they're all about the decriminalization. I know that. And again, Biden has never, his whole entire political career, or 47 years, never stood out on his own as this independent leader on any particular issue, on anything. He was always a go with the flow. Like you said, just kind of a little slimy or whatever you said, just kind of like, he just kind of was part of the whole DC, mentality, drank the Kool-Aid when he got there. So I think he will be, if he were president, I believe that he would be dictated to by the AOCs of the world because he wants to be part of the popular crowd.
Well, President Trump says he takes the states' rights view on this. It's a big subject. We'll see what's going on, but the states are making that decision right now, and I kick it back to the states. One of the things that both President Trump and Vice President Biden agree on is that, and this is a big topic, and we're going to probably end the show with this, should there be protection under Rule 230 for these internet companies, for Google, for Facebook, for Twitter? Should there be, should that protection come off? Because these people are now publishing versus just allowing public information just to flow through them.
Well, because there is a lot of public information that's being shut down. You and I have friends who can't get stuff on there. Real quick, and I thought this was an interesting note. Cleo said that Biden should be for legal marijuana because he said that he would open black-owned pot shops in black communities so people can have a business.
I think that's why black? Why not just everybody?
I was going to say that, yeah, there we go. Yeah, thank you, Cleo. That's very interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. But they both have said that they would relinquish this protection,
Right.
and that it would look further into how social media goes about the dissemination of public information and what control they have. It's very interesting right now. If you're not aware of this, then you need to come out of the rock that you're under. The fact that Facebook, Twitter,
Google, yeah.
all of them are controlling the information going out to the public.
Absolutely.
And we now have essentially 3 CEOs or just a handful of executives that are controlling the mood of this country. And because there's so many people on social media, I have never seen so much addiction in my life. We
and the
think,
younger you get, the worse it is. Well, no, you know what? We've got folks our we've got
old
folks
people
our age
too.
too. Yeah,
Old people too.
I've finally gotten to where I was like, and I was late to the Facebook party. I mean, I have been on a little over 3 years. So I've gotten to the point where I will literally now, I'm like, okay, I'll go hours without doing it, especially, and that's why I like keeping myself busy, because I'm like, you know what, every so often I'll pull something out and look at it. But for the most part, I try to have like 2 and 3 hour breaks from it. And especially right now, because there's so much venom, and gosh, you can post something like, I voted, and you're happy with your sticker. I voted for freedom. And then somebody attacks you going, oh, you voted for freedom, so you voted for so-and-so, and he's this, that, and the other. And I'm like, somebody just post a picture of their puppy.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. So
and happy birthday, Clyde.
Yeah, that's right. Happy birthday, Clyde. But again, the big thing is that both candidates have said that they would support stricter antitrust oversight and online privacy rules with these companies. And it's coming, and it needs to happen. It's interesting. One day I've got 6,000 people watching and getting information. The next day it's 40 people.
Yeah.
And it's like today, I expect today's show to go flat because I've got Trump versus Biden.
Well, and you've got that in the description.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I expect us to again drop off of our normal viewership because it won't be sent out. Like, for example, I tried to send out to Messenger today.
Right.
I sent to 2 people and it said you've reached your limit.
But you'd only sent to 2 people. Did you send anything to anybody last night?
No.
Okay, so then how'd you reach your limit?
It's because that's what Facebook said.
See, they're on you.
Oh, yeah.
They are on you because you belong to so many conservative groups, so many independent thinking groups.
And they've even blocked you from sharing, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways.
reshare.
Well, he was able to share today.
Today I was able to.
Knock on wood. So, hey, thanks for that, Facebook. And before we talk about some fantastic news, something I would love on Friday when we do our sports segment to get the crew's opinion on, and that is Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
caught on a hot mic mocking NFL military pregame flyover.
Did you actually read? I can't verify that. It came from a weird site that says they got it.
I'll send you the one that I pulled off. But I would love to hear, because it's one of those things. And I've talked to several of my big old sports fans who are big fans of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I mean, the NFL. If you've got those 2 guys going against the American military, the NFL is done. But party's over, lights are off, the game's over. So I find it very interesting that like some of the fans of these 2 individuals are saying, oh, well, they didn't mean it the way it sounded. So I'm anxious to hear the crew's point of view on Friday.
Let's send that over to Charles
will send that.
early. That way he can get that video up, because I just don't trust right now my Twitter or my Switcher app. No, my Switcher app. Yeah, I'm not trusting it right now.
So we'll send that over.
So if you'll send that over to Charles now, that gives him time to put that up. And so I also want to send out a big thank you to all of those in the crew that have been praying for my father.
Yes.
Good news. His kidneys are improving.
Yay!
He walked the hospital floor yesterday like 3 or 4 times, and his doctor came in behind him, and she's like, "I'm proud of you, Stan."
Oh, it's because it's a female doctor. That's why he's walking those halls.
Yeah,
is she cute? Yeah,
I'm sure. But he never saw her. He's like, "Are you stalking me?" And she's like, "Yep, I am." And so I want to thank
your dad.
everybody for their prayer, and for people from the crew
Yeah.
that reached out and talked to him.
Yeah.
Gail Meeks and Michelle called him, and my dad was so thrilled, and just said how sweet Gail is and how sweet Michelle is, and
And they are.
they are.
They
and so I
are.
want to thank you guys for
Yeah.
reaching out to my dad and making him feel like part of the family. And we're going to get him back here in Texas. We're going to move him back in
Can't
November.
wait.
So you
Yeah.
may be seeing me a lot from Phoenix, Arizona, as I'm packing up the house and getting things back. So, but want to thank everybody for
Yeah. Keep recovering, Stan. We
Yeah.
love you. Keep healing.
that. Tomorrow,
healing.
big day on JP Kathy and the Crew Network. You definitely want to tune into Money Link with Stephen Gale Meeks.
Absolutely.
This information is fantastic. They do such a great job, such good chemistry between the two. So
It's so
7:30
fun.
to
Yeah,
8:30.
it's like a really fun college lecture. Like you want to tune in because you're going to learn something. And I like, and you and I were talking about this the other day about money links. Each show builds on the other. So I can't wait for them to have somebody new tune in 6 months from now, and they get to say, "Hey, go back to the very beginning, watch it like a series, binge watch it, take notes." Because one episode builds on the other, and then you start putting all the pieces of a financial
Right.
puzzle together.
Right.
You
And they do
know?
such a great job. Then at
Yeah.
noon, from noon to 1, catch the Lawyer Show. Holy mackerel. What a great show, by the way. And love what Jeremy's doing with
Jeremy's
that.
doing a phenomenal job.
He
He always
really
takes
is.
these shows, and you're like, oh, it's just gonna be two lawyers talking. He always takes it in some unique fashion.
Oh,
Last
goodness.
week it was about mental health, and it was a very important show.
And the week before that about marijuana.
Yeah.
So he's producing great shows.
yeah, man. Is
yeah.
that a? Hey,
And then don't forget
worry,
to
be happy.
Right. Don't forget to pick up Ask Dr. Be Good. Her show will air on Thursday night from 6 to 7. And then we've got the Punchline Players comedy show from 7 to 7:30. And so don't forget to join us
Good
there on
stuff.
Thursday night. And then tonight, Chuck, we are putting out Kilroy's Conversation tonight.
Yes.
And so they can
Excellent.
catch that at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Awesome. And we need to
5
figure
tonight.
out. I need to ask Lisa when she wants to rebroadcast Heart and Soul of Texas Women. I will ask her that and let
Yep.
you know, Charles.
So,
and then
yeah.
Punchline Players tomorrow night. So
7 o'clock.
rocking and rolling. And
So yeah,
whatnot.
and also just kind of give you a real quick update. His kidneys are much better. His fever has broke. He had a little temperature yesterday. They have found that he has a virus in his blood, and they
not
can't.
Corona, not anything
No, no,
like
no,
that.
no.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing they've
Yeah.
ever met. They've tried to because I guess the way you kill a virus is you have to regrow it out of the person's blood. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they have the technology in hospitals. Chuck knew that.
Yeah,
and
that was
so-
all news to me. When you're saying that, I'm like, is this a sci-fi movie?
No, this is a virus they
Yeah.
cannot.
They couldn't identify.
Yeah, and well, still can't. And so they're every time they go to regrow it, it dies, and so they can't.
It's a short-lived virus or some sort.
Well, they just can't figure out because
Yeah.
they've got to figure it out so they can then send in the antiviral
Right.
to go get it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to let you figure that out because we're going to die too fast on the bio
So
table. there.
yeah.
So trying to figure out what that virus is in
Well,
his
yeah.
blood.
Prayers that they are able to figure that out very quickly and
Yes.
help him. But the good news is when you told me his kidneys were improving,
Yeah.
that gave me chills because I thought, my goodness, those are some answered prayers. Because once your kidneys start going,
It's
tough
trouble.
road to hoe.
Yeah,
Tough
it's
road
trouble.
to hoe.
So yeah, so thank you for all the prayers for my dad, and he thanks you as well. I've been screenshotting because he refuses to go on Facebook. A tech guy, CTO for goodness sakes,
But
and
he
refuses to go on
he
Facebook.
is on it.
Well, yeah, but he refuses to go look at it. So I've been screenshotting your
funny.
prayers and sending them to him, and it makes him feel good. And he wants to say, he told me to make sure I tell everybody thank you. And so, with that being said, we are going to close out today's show. Tune in Friday. Dr. Dave will be on talking about breast cancer.
Yes.
And breast cancer amongst entertainers. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be talking about that.
Check yourself out.
Sports first. Tons of sports to talk about. We'll start off at 7:35 with sports and end about 8:15 with that, and then pick up the last 45 minutes with entertainment news.
Entertainment.
Tons to say. Boy, did
And,
Chris...
we're introducing a new podcast guest host at the end of the show Friday
That's
as
right.
well. So
That's right. But, Chris got voted out. The famous actor. They did a big old thing. People Magazine.
Chris.
Who's the worst Chris in show business? So stay tuned to find out which Chris
wait,
it is.
what?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah.
I just want to say
Better not be
I
Chris
am so
Pratt.
proud of that boy up on the
Oh.
screen.
Yay, Jacob!
Yes, and Jacob, almost
Eagle
forgot.
Scout.
He got his Eagle
Yay!
Scout.
Applause.
He took this global pandemic head on and didn't let that stop him from doing his project.
So proud of him. It is such an accomplishment to receive that status in Boy Scouts. That is something you work your entire life towards, and it is hard work. And very few men in this world get to say they are an Eagle Scout, and now we get to say Jacob's one.
That's right. Congratulations,
I love it. Oh, I'm
Jacob.
so proud of him.
I am
Very
as
proud
well.
of him.
I am as
He has
well.
worked so hard for this.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So, tune in on Friday. We'll be back at 7:30. Don't forget to pick up the JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. Hopefully, we'll be launching our website officially, so you can start picking up a lot more information and become a part
Add new
of
shows.
the Crew Nation.
Add new shows.
Right
add
and left.
new shows.
All right.
We love it.
And then so stay tuned
Vote.
for more to go. And don't forget
Get
to go
out,
vote.
vote early. Early voting is
And
still
November
going
11th,
on.
put it on your calendar. Come out and join us here at
Telethon.
Venture X Studios.
Good times.
All right.
Have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day.
We love you, Stan Payton.
Hey, there you go.
Make him listen to that.
I'll make him listen to that. I'll send him a link to the
I try
show.
to hyperlink him every so often, and you never can.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got himself shut down on Facebook to where
He
he
does.
controls it all.
He's funny. All right. Have a blessed
All
day,
right.
everybody.
Love
We'll see you
y'all.
on Friday.